I'm Jay Monte with TruFan Boxing. I'm joined by my colleague Sean Sullivan of Boxing Digest, brought to you by Sultan and Kings. Sean, when you talk about Sultan and Kings, you've got to talk about the heavyweights, and the current heavyweight scene seems mangled. And what do you think's going to happen?
I wouldn't say there are any Sultan or Kings in the current heavyweight division.
Well, I would say the Sultans are the Klitschko brothers, or maybe they're the Kings. I don't know.
They're the best of the wee crop we have.
Interesting enough, we met up with Lennox Lewis, the last reigning heavyweight champion, linear heavyweight champion.
The last great heavyweight we've had.
And we asked him a few questions about the current heavyweight scene, and he described it as a changing of the guards.
Yeah, it's shocking to see a lot of people that I've still fought are boxing, and it's really changing of the guards. It's a new era for boxing right now. It's a rebuilding stage, so hopefully we're going to see that eruption of a new star soon.
Lewis, changing of the guards, so true. You have Orlando Solis, you have the Klitschko brothers, you have Hay, you have Adamak. Who do you like in 2011?
Well, out of those bunch of fighters, obviously the top two, as Lewis alluded to, are the Klitschko brothers, and I really don't see any one of the current contenders beating them at this stage. I really don't.
Well, Sean, you have the old guard, Bob Arum and Don King, who controlled the heavyweights about 25, 30 years ago in its heyday, and they had some very, very, I'd say, interesting thoughts on the heavyweight division. I know you and Don promoted heavyweights in the day. You did the 67 tournament. There's tournaments coming back in boxing now. The heavyweight division seems to be so scrambled. Is there any possibility of that happening?
Only if there's a lockout in professional football, so we can get our hands on guys like Brandon Jacobs, and then we can challenge for the heavyweight championship.
What do you think of the heavyweight division today?
It's in dire straits. You got two heavyweights that nobody knows about. They know of them name-wise, but they don't fight in America. They don't take on formidable contenders. So it's a thing that we got to search for a good heavyweight that can recapture the glory of yesteryear and bring this thing back to America, where you take on the best against the best and put it the way that everyone is accustomed to it, fighting the best against the best.
Well, Sean, barring an NFL lockout, what do you feel the heavyweight division will be? I mean, come on, let's face it. The NFL is not going to be locked out. And even if it was, is the transformation of fighter from football player going to happen so soon?
Well, realistically, can anyone come up with a top 10 at this point? Maybe a top 5, a top 6, but is it really a top 10 in this generation?
But, it sounds a little sour grapes on Arum's part. Maybe the product's not there for him anymore. Maybe he's a little older and he's looking at, he's been amazingly successful with the lighter weights anyway, with Pacquiao. I mean, he's a big heavyweight in today's world. Anyway.
I'll tell you what. There's one guy. I'm throwing out this challenge. Can anyone come up with a top 10? I'll tell you one guy probably can, and that's the lead singer of the band Pantera, currently of Down, Philip Anselmo, who I've come to know in recent years. He is a heavyweight expert, and if anyone can do it, I'm sure he can.
You didn't trust me to come up with the top 10, but you know what? You may be right. I don't think I can. Speaking of King, now he mentions these two heavyweights from the other side of the water, and we caught up with one of them, Wladimir Klitschko, one of the heavyweight champions of the world. And this is what he had to say about the current state of the heavyweight division. I wanted to ask you about this year now, what your expectations are of the heavyweight division, and you're sitting on top, what do you see, and what are your plans?
My plan is to stay active in this year, and I hope I'm going to get 3 fights this year as I planned it last year. So I just made 2 instead of 3. That eventually Klitschko brothers are going to unify all the titles at once, which was never in the history before. And that David Hay fight eventually come this year. So we have found a date. It's July 2nd to fight. And before I will make a fight with Derek Chisora on April 30th, just to stay active because my last fight was in September. And that's actually the plans. And then eventually to be here on the East Coast in the United States and fight Adamek. I think he has great following on this side of the country, and I think that the arena going to be sold out, and I think we're going to have an exciting fight. Suddenly, in the heavyweight division, there are some names to play around, and I'm very happy about it.
You know, Sean, Klitschko had a lot to say, but his plate's full for 2011.
Well, as you can see, even Wladimir Klitschko, the consensus top heavyweight we have right now, he can't even come up with who is out there. There really isn't anyone. Well, so he's fighting, luckily enough for us, the boxing fans, he's fighting the best available contenders. And, of course...
David Haye, hopefully.
Well, that's the issue here.
Yeah.
Is he fighting David Haye?
Well, he has signed to fight Adamek in September in Poland.
Well,
is that fight going to happen?
There's a stipulation behind that. Well, first, he's fighting Derek Chisora, the English heavyweight.
Right.
He's 14-0, 9 knockouts.
Right.
Not many people in the States or perhaps anywhere
Nobody
outside
knows
of
about
the
him.
United
Right.
Kingdom knows about him. But he's got to get past him first. And his brother, Vitaly Klitschko, the WBC titleist, he's fighting Arlenier Solis, the Cuban defect fighter. And should he get out of that, main events, the promoter for Tomas Adamek, the former cruiserweight champion
and light heavyweight.
He's 5-0 as a heavyweight now.
Right.
But the main events came up with a good plan. Adamek gets to choose: is he going to fight Wladimir or is he going to fight Vitaly? But he's going to, at least he's guaranteed that he's going to fight one of the Klitschkos. See, we don't know if Vitaly or Wladimir. They're supposed to fight Adamek by September. We don't know if they could.
Okay.
Either one of them could lose their fights.
Understandable, but he had mentioned in the interview about a July 2nd date with David Haye. Now, to me, I think that's wishful thinking.
Right.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, he was supposed to fight David Haye July 2nd. It was semi-agreed to, but David Haye didn't want Wladimir fighting that Derek Chisora fight in March. He wanted Wladimir to go straight to the Haye fight, and Wladimir said, no, why would I do that? That's too much time away from the ring. I'm going to take an interim fight. According to what I hear, David Haye didn't like that, so he balked so far. I mean, things could change any day with David Haye, as we've seen. I mean, how many times has he had the opportunity to fight a Klitschko and it hasn't happened yet?
Right. With all these no names or little names in the heavyweight scene, you know, I spoke to Larry Holmes, and he had talked about Klitschko, had something interesting to say, and he talked about the current state of the heavyweight division.
There are no really competition, no dedication in the heavyweight division. And you know, as we was coming up, you never heard of a guy from UK come over and be the heavyweight champion of the world. Now it's wide open. We don't have any heavyweights here that really dedicate and discipline themselves to be the champion of the world. That's why these guys are going to reign, and they're going to reign until we get somebody out of the closet to really want to work for what they want. You know. But you know, these guys are great. These guys, 6'5", 6'6", 7", whatever he is. You know, he got all the tools that he needs to stay in there and be. As long as I was in there for 7.5 years, he got the tools to be there too. But, you know, he got to develop it. Like I said, he needs to learn how to left jab. He paused the left jab instead of banging it, you know, like I do, like I did.
Larry Holmes is such a character. He compared himself to Klitschko fighting. He compares himself to heavyweight state. But he does have some merit to the conversation and the fundamentals that are lacking in the heavyweight boxing today.
In fact, we talk about the top 10 heavyweights of all time. I have him as number 3.
But where do you have George Foreman?
Top 10.
Top 10. I think he's before him. Let me tell you, they were supposed to fight a few years ago.
That's right.
And they were guaranteed money and everything, and there's a story behind it. And he still has a reservation to fight.
Larry has some resentments about that not happening, and he happened to express that.
And let's go to the video about that, because he said it at the same time.
That's the fight that everybody wanted to see, to me and George Foreman. But it ain't me that stopped the fight. It was George didn't want the fight. George didn't want to fight because he knew I was a mover, I was a jabber, I punched fairly, and he didn't want to take any chances. So, you know, everybody knows, if they don't know it by now, George is the biggest phony in the world. I know it, and I don't mind saying it. And y'all, the media knows that I tell it like I feel it, like I see it. And George is not the nicest guy in the world. He didn't want to fight, he was scared. And, hey, scared George Foreman.
Amazing, Sean. Larry Holmes and George Foreman never fought, and when their careers interlocked at the same time, incredible. It's hard to phantom that it never happened. It almost did, but never did happen. But today's heavyweights, this year, I like Thomas Adamek, and I like Wladimir Klitschko, and I think it's a toss-up when they fight. I'm not buying that small stuff. I like David Haye, and I like Solis, but Solis still has a lot to prove. What do you think?
Absolutely, I agree. Solis does have a lot to prove. I think David Haye still has a lot to prove, and Thomas Adamek, we know what he can do. He's proven himself time and time again. Light heavyweight division, cruiserweight division. He's a rough guy. He can get into the tough spots and come out of them. But you don't want to buy the small stuff. Is he too small for the Klitschkos? I'm not so convinced. I think he might be just a tad too small. I mean, we saw him fight Michael Grant, similar size to the Klitschkos. Of course, Michael Grant is nowhere near in the league of the Klitschko.
Right.
And he was coming off a long layoff. But I think that might be a factor when they fight.
Well, Sean, it's now time to get the TruFan's opinion. What do you think? Tell us at intersecttv.com/TruFanBoxing. The question is, what heavyweight will have the biggest impact on the division in 2011? Either Klitschko, David Haye, Adamek, or Solis. And remember, subscribe to TruFan Boxing. Real quick, Sean, I like Wladimir Klitschko to be the reigning champ in December. Who do you have?
I have to agree.
Well, we agree on something at last. For Sean Sullivan Boxing Digest, I'm J. Monte, TruFan Boxing. Be there in the square. Take care.